Welcome to the Works podcast, everybody. We are back and we have another great guest for you today. Our guest is Stephen Riscica. He is a director, writer, and producer of such short films as It Gets Better and Tumble Dry. He's going to be here with us in conversation today, but first, a couple quick updates and advertisements. If you're local to Long Island, New York, and need movie recommendations, subscribe to the Long Islander newspaper where you can catch my movie reviews and theater write-ups every week. We cover everything from local businesses, food and drinks, town events, and sports. Subscribe at longislandernews.com for only $35 a year. The Works podcast is sponsored by Reset Lift. You know, I love going to the gym, but I need the right clothes to go in. Our friends over at Reset Lift have created the perfect gym attire for you because their whole goal is to inspire you to be the best version of yourself. Go to resetlift.shop/scareworks right now to get exclusive offers on t-shirts, tanks, hoodies, shorts, joggers, sweatpants. You name it, they have it. Use discount code SCAREWORKS at checkout to receive 10% off on merchandise. Do you remember how we met?
Well, we met on the moon.
We did meet on the moon.
We met on the moon. We met on the set of a film called A Trip to the Moon, directed by Brian Michael Finn. It's still in production, but I think it's almost done. I think maybe I don't know. Maybe there's some more green screen. But it actually did start out as a short film, but he's since expanded it several times. So it is now a feature film. But so I was acting in the film. So I played an angry protester, and Abraham Lincoln's in this movie also. So I was protesting Abraham Lincoln going to the moon, or commissioning this trip to the moon, and that's how we met. So, and you were a production assistant, and you were, I think, 15 at the time. 15,
Probably.
or were you 16?
It was probably like 15 or 16, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember you were definitely still in high school.
For anyone keeping track, yes, that movie has been in production for 10 years now.
But I'm actually like really excited to see it.
This is going to be like epic.
Yeah.
A 10-year project, it's, so much work has been put into that. I'm definitely looking forward to that.
I mean, if Richard Linklater did it with Boyhood.
I mean, come on. We might be right on the brink here of discovering the next Linklater.
I mean, this is true. No, but I think it's going to be something. It's something that's really unique, and I think he's got I think Brian has a real great vision, and yeah, I'm like really excited to see it. I really am.
Years back, Brian actually helped me out when I did my first short film, Fear. He helped us out on some of the editing on that, so I always appreciate Brian. And
yeah, Brian actually edited It Gets Better, also my short film.
Excellent. Well, we're going to be talking about It Gets Better today. I mean, we could actually, segue right into that. So I mean, we work together on It Gets Better. Tell people about It Gets Better, because I mean, it's really a great success story for you. It Gets Better, really made it all over the world. You guys had so much like success at the festival circuit with that. Describe that whole experience. What is that movie to you? Let's dive into that.
It's the first. Well, it's my first major short film. It took me about maybe 5 or 6 years to actually write it. It started out as a piece of prose, actually, more like a free form kind of stream of conscious poem. So that's how it started out, and then it was just kind of like sitting on my laptop for a while, and I just kept thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it, and it just kind of wouldn't go away. And then finally, I had gone to a film festival, and I kind of saw like a lot of the work that was being done there, and I saw some work that was like really great, and then I also saw like a lot of like work that was just very subpar, and so I'm like seeing like what's being shown and what's being accepted to these things. It's like what am I doing? Why haven't I done this? So that kind of gave me the real like motivation to actually get things in motion. Like I was inspired by the creativity that I saw. This was at the Nice Film Festival in France, um, and so yeah, I was inspired by just kind of work that I really was inspired by and that I really appreciated, and then other work that just if this person's doing it, like what am I doing with myself in my life? So that's kind of how things started to get into motion, and I did an Indiegogo campaign, and which was pretty successful, and
Go into the Indiegogo campaign, because for some people listening, they might have no idea what that is. What is Indiegogo?
it's a crowdfunding platform. Um, so there are several that you can use. You can use Kickstarter, you can use Indiegogo. I mean, there's GoFundMe. With Indiegogo, what's great about them is that you keep whatever you're able to raise. I mean, they take a percentage of the money that you raise, but you're unlike Kickstarter, if you don't make your goal, you don't see any of that money. But with Indiegogo, you're able to keep the funds that you've raised. Um, and then you offer incentives, like if you donate X amount, you get a shout out on social media. If you donate this amount, then maybe you get a signed copy of the script. So you kind of give incentives for people to donate. And yeah, and I think we raised a little bit over $8,000 on Indiegogo. And I did have one angel investor who I actually did meet on the film festival circuit. And I remember he saw what I had raised at the time, and then he saw that I was really passionate about this project and said, hey, I saw that you raised this amount, I will match that. So he was, a big part in making sure that this got off the ground and running. Um, but also with my crowdfunding campaign, I also did give back a little bit. So I think I donated 10%. Yeah, I think it was 10% of everything that I raised on Indiegogo. I donated to the Trevor Project, which is a charity for um, LGBTQ youth for to prevent teen suicide. So I did give back with my project.
Can you explain how the Trevor Project and its mission related to the themes and ideas that were represented in It Gets Better, your short?
So it's inspired by a it was a YouTube campaign uh, called It Gets Better. It was created by Dan Savage, and it was meant to give uh, it was a platform for people to give their own testimonials on growing up queer, and it was basically they're meant to be inspiring, to give hope out there to queer people that things might be difficult at the time, but they do indeed get better. So it's all like firsthand accounts of uh, different people and their experiences growing up queer. Um, Specifically, there was a testimonial by a gay teenager in Rochester, New York, who made a few of these It Gets Better videos, and later ended up committing suicide. So that's actually what inspired this whole project and this whole film. So I mean, that's who your role is based on. So your role is based on Jamie Rodemeyer from Rochester, New York. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how it started. So
Um,
so yeah, like I imagined what somebody from the older generation, how they would respond to watching one of these videos by a young gay teenager who may or may not have committed suicide. So that's basically the film right there.
so, that It Gets Better asks the question, right? It turns that campaign into a question mark, um, which I think is, pretty I guess pretty confusing for straight people that look at the LGBT community and they're like, well, it looks like everything's gotten better. Um, can you kind of describe, I guess, why that became a question for you?
Um, I was just kind of also dealing with my own like issues at the time too. I was uh, taking a look at where I was in my life and just kind of goals that I had set up for myself, and I wasn't where I thought I would be. And I so I so that's kind of where it started for me, like personally. Um, and then yeah, that's how it started for me with that. But you know, I had issues, growing up as a queer teenager. I was someone who didn't really identify with straight culture. I didn't identify with gay culture. So I had to kind of create my own family and kind of figure things out on my own. And there wasn't as much visibility as there is today. Like, you had to actually kind of um, search for visibility. You had to kind of actively seek it out. It wasn't just there wasn't any RuPaul's Drag Race that you can just tune into every week. So you had to kind of figure things out on your own and kind of create your own rules and you know write your own guidelines and create your own rule book. And yeah, that's how it was for me.
When you look at now the representation that you see all over media, um, versus then, how do you feel that the representation has progressed? Do you feel that it is in a good place right now? Do you think that overall it still needs some work? How do you feel that the LGBTQ uh, community is represented currently in media?
I think there's a lot of really great representation out there. I mean, there's kind of something for everyone. If you want to watch a daily, or I mean, so a weekly reality television show involving drag queens, you can do that. If you want something also involving drag, but you're feeling like a little spooky, we got a show for that also. If you're non-binary, if you're trans, there's um, there is representation out there. There are films about that experience. It You might have to do a little work. You might have to do a little bit of research, but it is out there, and there are queer creators, and there's a lot of really great, compelling queer work that is out there. You just have to kind of, um, yeah, you just have to search for it. Um, it's kind of like how when I was growing up, um, I would just go to Blockbuster. So I go to Blockbuster, and I would see something that was a little risque, and I would kind of sneak that VHS home and kind of watch that in private. So I mean, that was kind of my experience. But I mean, like, there's a platform for everyone and for everything. But yeah, it was you just have to kind of like do the research and just kind of see what's out there. Um,
What do you say to people when you hear comments like, um, even like in a relatively like heterosexual movie, I guess you could call it, right? Something like Talk to Me received backlash and was even banned in certain countries because there's a trans actor in the movie or a non-binary actor in the movie. Um, and it was actually banned in countries just because this character is featured in the film, even though that is never talked about explicitly. When you see stuff like that happening, what do you feel is the right response to that? Because that character is you saw Talk to Me, right?
yeah.
That character, I believe the character's name was Zoe or Zoe. Um, they're never directly named androgynous or trans. They are just a character in this world. And honestly, I thought it was a really good portrayal. I thought all the acting in that movie was fantastic. The writing was really strong on that. Um, and still, despite being so subtle about it, it still receives this backlash. What do you think the right answer is as far as representation goes on screen? Because I can't, that's such an inoffensive role for that actor,
Mm.
and it still caused all this controversy. um what do you think is the right response in a situation like that?
I just kind of think we need to just keep making art and kind of keep casting non-traditionally. I mean, it's sad that the film was banned in certain countries. But yeah, I think we just kind of have to keep going and keep increasing representation. And it wasn't the film wasn't a trans narrative. It was just a trans or non-binary character that was featured in this film. I think we are kind of getting more towards that, where it's just kind of more common to see, uh, you know, trans, non-binary, queer representation um, out there.
Have you ever had a situation where like representation on screen worked against you?
Worked against me.
Let me give you
Oh,
an example. Oh, okay, yeah, if you have something.
yeah. Um, you were there for that when we went to the. It was. Oh, I don't want to call them out. Well, we went to a film festival, and it was shown. It was shown in a museum. So it was a film festival that was in a museum, and it was a part of a short film block. And our film was supposed to be, I think, the first or second film to be shown there. And I mean, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything really super controversial about It Gets Better. It does feature same-sex kissing, but I remember this festival moved my film towards the end of the block. It was after this really long like documentary about I don't even know what it was, some sort of environmental documentary, but they moved it towards the end and they gave like a warning that it contained sexually explicit content. So if people wanted to leave, that they can leave then. So I think that was one specific time that it worked against me, and I was very offended. And what bothered me also was the previous day or something, they showed a film about sex workers, and there was backside nudity and jock straps, and there was no, and it was also shown in the middle of the day, and there was no warning for that. So like, why was my film specifically targeted, and given this warning to remove kids or so. Yeah, that's one specific uh, time that I can remember.
That's a fascinating story, especially because you usually consider Hollywood as this kind of liberal bastion, or it's at least painted that way in the media. And yet, you still experience these kind of weird moments of, I don't want to say discrimination, but definitely like odd, odd behavior. Um, for me, I've had representation on screen work against me in social settings. I remember when I was growing up in high school, for me, like RuPaul was very on in high school, which was like, that's great. But it also set this expectation, I think, in a lot of ways that, um, well, if you're gay, you should look this way. And now representation has changed a little bit, right? Now I see like very, all different walks of life of gay people on screen, lesbian, gay, bisexual, doesn't really matter. There's kind of representation everywhere now. But back then, I remember definitely experiencing, I had kids telling me I would come out of the closet, and then someone told me one time, no, you're not gay. Like you don't dress like a drag queen. and and it was like, no, but I am, like, I know I am. What do you
Yeah.
mean? So it's interesting how, for me at least, I've noticed that representation kind of sets up these expectations people have of you, right? Because celebrity and stardom generalizes all, right? It paints with a broad brush. So it's like if RuPaul is super popular, then that means all gays must be dressing like drag queens. you know um and I've like often encountered like weird things socially like that, where because certain aspects of gay culture are represented on screen, then that must be all of gay culture.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced the same thing growing up. I remember, um, again, there weren't, you had to really like search for these for representation, and um, I was someone who didn't identify with straight culture. I didn't identify with gay culture. Then like what I would see were films that would feature drag queens, like a torch song trilogy. By the way, I like love these movies now. Like I love Torch Song Trilogy. I love Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. I really do love these films. So like again, so there was the drag element that I didn't identify with, and or also there was kind of this queer coming of age story where everything kind of ends up being happy at the end, like the movie A Beautiful Thing, which also is a movie that I've kind of learned to appreciate, and I really like now. But at the time, I didn't quite. It just didn't really speak to me. Um, that or then also like in the '90s, there were so many films just kind of dealing with AIDS. So it's like you're watching these films and it's all about death everywhere and sadness, and it was I scary. It was a scary time, and it was. These are important films, but again, I just didn't feel that connection. Um, I would say the first time that I really connected with a film that was a classic queer film. So the first time that I saw Pink Flamingos and John Waters' Pink Flamingos. So I saw the 25th anniversary of it. I was 14 at the time, and I was just I was kind of blown away by it because it was unlike anything that I've ever seen. It was a
Yeah.
complete celebration of debauchery, but it was all kind of done in like this really loving and celebratory way. Like you have uh, Divine, who is just this huge presence on screen, and just the way she looks, just the makeup was unlike anything I've ever seen. Because you see these images of drag queens and it's all like performance based, but this is Divine playing Babs Johnson, and she just totally embodied that character and just went for she just basically went there, like they're there are things in that film that are still shocking today. Or you can be a middle-aged woman in a brassiere, missing teeth and covered with eggs, and just kind of being just living in a crib, and somehow that's kind of seen as accepted. So it was kind of like it kind of gave you permission to, well, it gave me permission to kind of think outside the box, and to um, that it kind of showed that there is a place for the oddball, for the weirdo, for the free thinker. And it kind of, that film kind of gave me permission to explore that. And so like there is a place in this world for the weirdo, for the oddball, for someone who doesn't fit into a little box. So that film was very it eye-opening for me.
Can you think of like an example of representation that like really didn't work for you, that you found offensive?
Um, Offensive. Remember the movie Flawless? The movie Flawless, kind of focus on a self-loathing drag queen, but it was also kind of like this crime film attached to it. So that kind of felt like, just kind of portraying like this sad, lonely homosexual. So that film. Let's see, another. Oh, is there one for you? I just need like a minute to think about it.
Well, like, whenever I think of like depictions of like gay culture that I don't like on screen, it's usually when it depicts it as something like pedophilic, or
Mm.
something um, like kind of like off-putting or creepy. And like, the unfortunate part is like there is some like reality in all bad depictions of people, all walks of life. But I mean, like, um like even the other day, right, like we went to go see My Own Private Idaho, right? And for me, like, I understand like where that movie is coming from, and I understand the main character a lot. But like when you look at like something like Udo Kier's part now, like I love his character in that movie and his performance in that movie. But as a representation, it does feel a little uncomfortable, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't want people to think that this is what gay culture is, where it's just constantly older men hitting on young things and bringing them back and doing stuff like that. Um, and it's like I go back and forth in scenes like that, because it's like on the one hand, the performance is great, and I liked that movie. But at the same time, in certain, perspectives, I could definitely see that playing uncomfortably. And I think when I look at like representation, I think hasn't worked for me, it's only because it hasn't worked because the motives of the characters were just unclear, or at least the motive behind the camera was unclear in a sense.
Yeah, but I think also with I see what you're saying about the Udo Kier character, but also Gus Van Sant he is a queer filmmaker, so I think
Sure.
he I don't think he did it in a way that was meant to be offensive. I think he
That's,
also
yeah.
um he captured the voices of that there were like real young um sex workers that are depicted in that film too. He casts real sex workers, so I think he
Right,
had
there
a good
is a certain
understanding.
level of truth to it.
Mhm.
There is a certain level of truth to it. Um, and that's why I again, like, I go into that area of like I kind of feel like it's a gray area of representation, right? Because I wonder if like a mainstream audience could actually differentiate, between like this is maybe exacerbated for the comedy of the scene, or just created for the movie itself, rather than like this is actually a depiction of what's going on frequently all the time. I mean, again, like there is some kernel of truth to it. There is actual sex workers working in that movie, and like um I think that situation does happen, probably more often than we'd like to admit. But I hate the idea that an audience could step away from that and paint with a broad brush.
You ever see the movie Lie?
I have not. I've been told to watch
So
it.
yeah. So Brian Cox, and what's his name? Paul Dano. I think, right? It's Paul Dan. I think he's in it, right? Anyway, and
It's fact.
Billy Kay, who I actually used to do community theater with. But yeah, Brian Cox plays a pedophile who picks up boys on rest stops at the LIE. Um, and yeah, and it is a little bit problematic because one of the boys that he picks up kind of outgrows, like, he's not seen as desirable anymore, and then the Billy Kay character is kind of taking over that role of like the Brian Cox's new young plaything. But yeah,
It
it's
was in fact Paul Dano.
what was it? I'm
It,
I'm
it,
pretty sure it's Paul Dano.
it was.
Oh, it is good.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
yeah. No,
fact checking you.
I think that's like his first major role.
And he was young there.
Yes. And yeah, the whole thing's filmed in Comac too. It's all filmed Comac and like Northport.
That's
Um, yeah, you got
represent Long Island. Let's go.
yeah, that's some great queer representation from Long Island, but actually like kind of accurate, kind of scarily accurate.
Yeah, have you seen Brian Cox waiting at a gas stop recently?
No, no. I've never quite experienced the park and ride, but I do know that it exists. I know that it's I'm not sure if it's still a popular cruising area, but
I mean, whenever I drive past it, there's cars in there.
yep.
Um,
Well,
so
that's actually kind of, yeah. It's interesting. It's in a weird way. It's kind of refreshing that these weird cruising areas still exist. That it's not all just you know going on apps on your phone. That if you want to go to the park and ride, just park your car and see what happens.
how are you feeling about the state of filmmaking right now?
Um, Feeling about the state of filmmaking. I don't know. I'm kind of excited to see what comes of it. I think I people have been on strike for a while. Um, so I feel like there's probably still all this kind of creative energy that was building up. So I'm kind of excited to see what comes from that. But as far as like, I'm not really the best person to talk to about like AI or I haven't really been. It's embarrassing. I haven't really been following as much as I should, but I know the gist of it, and I know that people should be compensated fairly. I think AI is kind of terrifying, but yeah, I guess we'll just kind of see what happens. But yeah, I think like after this kind of period of not being active, I'm kind of curious to see what comes out of that. On my Facebook feed, just people that I know personally who've done big projects, like they'll show their residual checks and be 43 cents, $1.25. So it's really pretty appalling. And just the actress from Orange is the New Black. So that entire cast, they were working side jobs while Netflix was making all this money, and yeah. So I'm curious to see how things are going to change now. If these residual checks are going to get like a little bit, if people can
A-
make a
As
living on doing their art.
as a filmmaker, how do you feel about the theater going experience? Do you still think that that's a necessary requirement, or do you think that it's okay to view a movie from the comfort of your home and not go to the theater?
I love going to the theater. It's like it's kind of almost like going to church for me. It's like I probably sound like Nicole Kidman right now at the start of the AMC uh, preview. But
Make
yeah, no, I mean,
movies better.
it's a ritual for me. You know, you're seeing a work by a director the way that it should be seen. You're not distracted by your phones, your devices. You can't just pause to go get yourself a drink. You know, it's a ritual. It's a you're in a church. So for me, it's still very much a part of my of my life. I probably go to the cinema maybe like 3 times a month. But even like, you know, films that I own on Blu-ray, if I see that there's like a special screening of it, I will go to experience um, this work the way it's meant to be seen. Um, so and it's yeah, it's in a way it is kind of like going to church for me.
For me, I also feel like I just retain the movies better. You know, like when I'm sitting on my couch, I feel like there's just too many distractions, or it's just like the lighting isn't perfect. You know, it's like I like the sense of being in the dark room with the booming speakers and looking up at this magnificent, silver screen. Because that is, you're right, that's the way it's supposed to be viewed. And I feel like when you're at home, you can't just tunnel vision and immerse yourself into it the same way you can when you're actually, in a theater, sit next to Nicole Kidman at AMC.
Also, I prefer going to movies by myself. I'm not sure about you, but I love going to movies by myself. I love
all the
going
time.
to that first matinee, and you're like maybe one of 5 people, and it's like you're having your own private screening, and then I don't know. I kind of don't like going to movies with other people because first of all, you have to kind of plan things more. Like somebody wants popcorn, the other person doesn't want popcorn. Like someone doesn't have the best theater etiquette, they're either texting or talking to you, and just like shut up, just let me enjoy this experience. Let me just live in this world for a little while. And then the credits roll, the lights go up, and then immediately they're like, oh, so what do you think? Like that bothers me.
Yeah.
Like I just experienced this whole world. Like just give me a minute to collect my thoughts and to kind of let everything sink in. Like I don't want to talk to anybody right now. And then that immediate like what do you think? You know, that drives me crazy. One of the most fun recent film going experiences was actually the have you seen the Talking Heads concert film? Stop
I
Making
have
Sense.
not. I have not, and I've heard a lot of good things.
So that was a lot of fun, actually. So again, it was one of those experiences where it was only it was like the first screening of the day, and it was IMAX theater, and it was only myself, and then there was like another couple, but it was kind of like I was at my own private Talking Heads concert, and just seeing it on. I like the Talking Heads. I'm not like the biggest Talking Heads fan, but I you know I like their music. I'm a fan of all like '80s new wave um
But I'm
and
curious,
but
have you seen the only concert film that matters, which is Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour?
I have not seen the Eras tour. No,
Even, come on,
I
what are we doing
know.
here? What is going on?
No, I'm fine with Taylor. Like I nothing against her. I think she's got some good songs. I mean, I do identify with the song "Anti-Hero" a lot. So I mean, that's kind of like it's become like my mantra that you know I'm the problem. It's me. But
Oh, no, you're not.
I mean, at tea time, everybody agrees. But no, I have not seen the Eras tour,
Again,
but Stop Making Sense, the Talking Heads documentary is out of this world. It's like you are right there with them. Like it was just so exciting. Just the camera gets so close with like the background singers, like you feel like you're in on the action, and plus it's a real conceptual show. Like it starts out um with one person on stage, and then it slowly more and more of the band is introduced, and by the end it's just kind of like this sort of free for all, and David Byrne's in this oversized suit, and it's just freaking fantastic. So that was a fun movie going experience, just by myself, IMAX screen, perfect party. It was great.
It sounds great. One thing I wanted to talk about was the film that you followed up with after It Gets Better, which is Tumble Dry. Can you talk about any of your experience with Tumble Dry?
Yeah, so Tumble Dry was a lot of fun. So Tumble Dry was probably the most fun I ever had on any project ever. So I was working co-directing with my one of my really good friends, Delia, and basically it's about learning how to socialize through online dating, and it's written by Gabe Waldman. So Gabe, he owns a comedy club in New York City, and actually Delia and Gabe met on either Tinder or Bumble. So they met on one of those dating platforms, and just kind of ended up being better friends, instead of having that romantic spark. Yeah, like Gabe would just tell Delia all these crazy stories about these dates that he's been on and these wackadoos that he's encountered, and um, he was like, "Oh, we should make a film about this." So that's pretty much what we did. So it focuses on Gary, who's kind of nervous. He has a lot of social anxiety, and he goes on kind of like a series of awkward dates, and they'll end up kind of meeting each other at this premiere of his play, and yeah, and he kind of like comes out of his shell at the end. He kind of like starts to he's not things aren't 100% better. It starts out with him staring at a dryer with nothing in it, and it's just kind of going around and around in a circle and a circle, and he does that to kind of heat the dryers up so it kills all the germs. And we end with the same shot, but there's just kind of like a slight smile. So it's kind of like he's maybe learned a little something, after these experiences. But that was just so much fun. That was just hanging out with my friends, getting a fun group of people together, just laughing. Like we just, I can't remember laughing as much as I did than just kind of being in the writer's room with with Delia and Gabe, and just getting Chinese food and just writing this thing. But
Have you yourself experienced any awkward dates from Tinder?
yeah, I mean, yes. I haven't really been. I think I just belched by accident.
I didn't hear it, but I'll cut it out.
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure I just belched.
But
Not recently. I haven't really been on any dates recently. Most awkward. Somebody broke my toilet.
okay, wow. Is
Yeah,
there a
yeah.
story there? Like,
Yeah, it was just somebody who I met online, and we went to go get sushi, and he didn't
oh
look
God.
anything like his didn't look anything like his profile. Like his hair was thinning, and just something weird was going on with his face.
Something weird was going on with his face. What are you?
No, I mean, God, that sounds so horrible to say, but let's just say it didn't look. He looked completely different. It was clearly like a photo that was maybe like 5 years old. hair was thinning and like long and kind of like pulled back, and I don't know. There might have been like there was something weird with his teeth too. Like I think there was some sort of weird snaggle tooth that I didn't really notice from the picture he sent me.
Steven,
Um,
Steven.
but
Gotta look
anyway,
for
so
ways to verify.
I somehow ended up getting sushi with him, and it was just kind of a very awkward dinner. And then we actually did go back to my place. Well, he had met me initially at my place, and I think he conveniently left something upstairs, and then he used the bathroom, and I'm just hearing like the handle being like jiggered like furiously, and yeah, he broke it off.
Broke off the handle. Oh
He broke off
no.
the handle of the toilet.
Oh no.
So I was like, oh, okay, okay, I can fix it. I can fix it. Thank you. Thank you. This was so nice. Uh, have a good night. Have a good night. Thank you. Thanks for breaking my toilet.
At least he didn't overflow it. I mean, that could have been I would have been upset.
No, but I remember like so that the handle was broken off, and then like the lid was taking he took the lid off, so I guess he flushed it manually by pulling the thing up. But yeah, the handle was clearly just broken off. So that's probably my most awkward dating story.
That I'm surprised didn't make it into Tumble Dry.
Yeah, that would have been a that was a good one. Yeah. You're
So
in Tumble Dry also.
I was just in the back, but yeah, I was there. I was around. Um, so as we're coming to a close here, is there any projects that you're working on right now?
I am working with a screenwriter. I don't want to say too much about it, but there is somebody that I am working with on a feature film. So we have a rough outline, and we have about 50 pages written. But again, I don't really want to say too much about it because I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. But I will say that it is a dark family drama.
Ooh,
So I can say that. But
very nice.
yes. So stay tuned.
Where can people find your work if they're looking for it?
You can find It Gets Better on deku.com. DEKKOO. It's a platform that focuses on LGBTQ related content. So we can find It Gets Better there. Tumble Dry, we need to get out somewhere. It's just kind of been like sitting there for far too long. It needs to get on some sort of platform, but it is on Shorts TV. And I co-directed another film called Limp, which is on a platform called Reverie.
Excellent. So, folks, you heard it right here. You know where to check them out. Give them a watch, give them a follow, give them a like. I want to thank Stephen Riscica for coming on the program today. Am I saying your last name right, by the way?
It's Riscica.
Riscica, okay. I want to thank Stephen Riscica for being on the program today. And
thank you for having me.
of course, I mean, you're like one of my besties. Like, how could I not have you on? And like, we're gonna be working together again, I'm sure, very soon. What was your weird podcast story, by the way?
Oh, I got a psychic reading, a live psychic reading.
Well, the works isn't as good as that. I mean, I can't predict your future, but I mean, like, let's hear it. What did they say?
Oh, are you still recording?
I'm still recording right now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll throw it in there.
Yeah. So I was on a podcast with Laura Powers, who's a psychic medium. So we met in Cannes. She had gone to see Tumble Dry, and then we didn't meet in it was Utah. So she saw my film in Utah. So we didn't meet in Utah, but she saw the film. She liked the film. So then we ended up meeting in Cannes at the Riviera Film Festival, and yeah, so she's a psychic medium. So she did a live reading with me, and basically she said that I should write a book. That I should write a. She saw like a book in my future, so I should write a book on kind of like my perspective on filmmaking, or I don't know. So she saw that. Um, she said that I should stop eating gluten.
Okay.
So she said I should stop eating gluten, and she did see my grandmother. So I asked about my grandmother, and she said that she's got this image of like a football stadium or a baseball stadium, and she could see my grandmother on the sidelines, just kind of like cheering me on. So so that was that,
That's
that's
a cute
comforting to
little
hear.
hallucination.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's cute. Uh,
yeah.
I have a weird podcast story for you too. Um, so I was on a podcast a few months ago. I'm not gonna say who it is because I did not love this experience. But I was on this podcast, and before I even sat down to record, the guy sat me down, looks at me, and he's just like, "Hey, so if you have any tragedy in your life, you should really share it because that's great for views."
Mm.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, great." And we started talking, and I was like, yeah, like I started getting into writing early on because I couldn't really bring friends over to my house. Like, it was kind of a complicated home situation. My parents were getting divorced, and he was like, "Oh, do you feel responsible for that?"
Oh, oh shit.
And I was like, no, I don't. Is there any other questions you want to ask me?
Oh wow. Hmm.
Um, Um, yeah, no, that was an interesting interview. It got pretty hostile. I actually texted the producer, and I was like, I don't know if that should air. I don't, I don't think that went well. At one point, he was like, he looked at me and he goes, "You're a director. Directors are leaders. What do you think of the political leaders right now in our country?" And I was
Oh
like,
boy.
how
Oh,
do
I
these,
think I remember you telling me about this
how do these
guy.
questions connect?
Yeah.
Um, you're not going to get that type of hard-hitting questions here at the Works, but you will get very intimate questions about your filmmaking process, and that's what we specialize in here. So again, want to thank you for coming on today, and see you soon.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Steve. Bye.
Bye.
Welcome to the Works podcast, everybody. We are back and we have another great guest for you today. Our guest is Stephen Riscica. He is a director, writer, and producer of such short films as It Gets Better and Tumble Dry. He's going to be here with us in conversation today, but first, a couple quick updates and advertisements.